Wednesday, July 22nd, 2020. We're having a planning board meeting, a virtual meeting. All the information's there for Zoom. We also have telephone number that people can call in. If we have anything open meeting tonight, I don't think we have very much. We have the historical to take input on. I guess we might as well start right in at the agenda. Katrina Road. J&J McCarthy LLC for a property located at a limited industrial zone district. The project proposes a two-story, 14,000 square feet building, 45 parking spots, and 69 bus parking spots, and associated site improvements for purpose of operating a school bus transportation and maintenance facility. I see we've got some letters. Do you have anything, Mike?
No, I don't have anything here.
Mike Walsh should be right if he has any.
Oh, wrong way.
I do not have any letters in front of me.
I think we got one from the Public Works.
Yeah, it should just be a Christina letter. The project's.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, I got one. You want to read it?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Dear members, this office has reviewed the site plans by JM Associates consisting of 5 sheets dated April 11, 2018, revised June 11th of 2018, and a drainage report dated April 10th, 2018. As a result of this review, this office concerns have been met sufficiently, and the plans have been revised accordingly. We recommend endorsement of the Mylars. If you have any questions, please contact me at this office. Sincerely, Christina Papadopoulos.
Evan, has it really been 2 years? That went by quick.
Yeah, it has been 2 years.
So all we're doing is endorsing the Mylars, nothing else?
That's it. We need just a motion to endorse.
Does this need to, where it's over 2 years now, does it need to go kind of like that, but the bikini project there, or is this?
No, they've built stuff. They've actually activated their building permit.
Entertain a
How did
motion.
they activate the building permit without an endorsed Mylar?
So we fairly regularly will allow a building permit to proceed prior to final endorsement of plans.
Really?
And, yep.
Good.
I would entertain a motion.
So what have they done so far on the site?
That's up to you, Evan.
The foundation, I believe, is in at this point.
Without endorsing the Mylars?
Correct. Like I said, we do this fairly routinely. We're not in the business of holding up projects. So there's a number of projects in which we'll handle it this way. And as some of you are aware, the building department issues a foundation only permit first, and then a second half of a building permit for the frame and the structure itself.
All right. That's reasonable enough. I'll move to endorse, to have the Mylars endorsed.
Second.
All in favor? I'll have to do a roll call on this one. Evan,
Yes, please.
Glenn,
No,
Hank,
Am I allowed to vote? Is this a special permit?
I don't know if this was a special permit. I think it was at one time.
But is it now? Is my question.
Evan?
Tonight is an administrative vote.
All right.
So are we down one member this evening?
Yes. Tim's down.
Yeah, so then Hank can vote.
All right. I'll say yes.
Mike Raisbeck,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yeah.
Mike Walsh,
Yes.
Don Van Dyne.
Yes.
I'll vote a yes. All right, one down. All right, continue. Oh, wait a minute, we got UPS slid in here. I don't know how many people have done their homework. I have.
Yeah, I've got my fill in the numbers.
All right,
See that? Yep, I did that.
all right, Evan, you want us to just go right to the fact sheet and put the numbers in?
Yeah, the first fill in the blank is on top of page 4,
That would be A.
1A.
I had 13 and 14. I don't know what else other members had.
I was pretty liberal. I had 13 and 14 as well as 7, 9, 23, 24, 25, and 26.
7, 9, what?
23, 24, 25, 26.
Any others? Other members? Any others?
No.
You covered it.
Okay.
Uh,
B.
B, the pedestrian and vehicle safety. We're building a parking lot inside of a property, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, so does so I had 7 and 8 for this one.
Those related to curb cuts or reusing an existing curb cut? That's what is 7 and 8.
7 and 8 was the
New
complies with,
parking area, yeah, vernal landscaping. Okay,
Well, I had a bunch. I was pretty liberal on these.
Yep.
So I had 6, 15, 16, 17.
6, 15, 16.
16, 17. Pretty much
Okay.
anything having to do with the parking lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, C.
Construction of views from publicly accessed location, you minimize based upon the following facts.
I had 7, 9, 10, and 11. Oh, excuse me, no. C, 9, and 10, sorry.
I would add 18.
18. Any others?
So D was the next one. I had 7, 9, and 10.
I agree. I added 11 to that as well.
And I added 18 and 20.
Excellent.
E, glare from headlights. I had 7, 9, and 10.
I had 11, 18, and 20 as well.
F.
F is likely non-applicable.
Yeah,
They're not-
just
There's
gonna
no new building, okay?
Yep. Yeah.
G,
G, I had 24, 25, and 26.
I added 23.
The other ones? H. 18, 21, 9, 10, and 7.
I had 15 and 16 on that as well, but I was not sure if that's correct.
I had 3, 12, and 17 also.
3, 12, 17, okay? Now we're down to 3A.
3A. A project serves the social, economic, and community needs for the town provided by blank. What did you have, Mike?
I haven't put anything down for this one. I'm not sure which ones to use. Does
No,
anybody have anything?
No,
no, I didn't have anything on that one either.
no, I didn't either. On my submission to Evan, I didn't. That's the one I left blank.
Yeah,
I would suggest it's an expansion of an existing industrial use. So 3 and 4, maybe?
Would it help if 4 were expanded to include the jobs that it brings to town?
Well, I can add under 3A, I can add by providing increased jobs. Increased
It's not
jobs.
increasing the jobs. It's just that particular major business complex does employ a lot of people.
Okay, so yeah, by providing, so by maintaining existing jobs and expansion.
I think it's important on this one also to say that they're not bringing more volume to town.
Yeah, we have that in there on a different finding. Okay. 3B.
3B, project provides adequate traffic flow, safety, including parking and loading with an engineer designed facts.
I had 15, 16, 17.
I had 3.
Yeah, that
Anybody?
works.
Okay. 3C.
There are adequate utilities and other public services.
I had 22, 23, 24, and 25.
Yeah,
That covers it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're on to page 5. Facts related to the major business complex.
We gotta,
I had this was blank for me.
How about all of them?
that's pretty much what I had, all of them.
yeah, that's where I started out. I went 1, 3, 4, 6, and then decided it was pretty much everything.
That's kind of how we've done it in the past.
Yeah.
And I think for findings, we've done all as well.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, there are only 3 findings.
Yeah. All right, so now we're down on the bottom. Site plan review. I think we've done all facts.
Yeah, I think it's all facts.
All facts.
And I think that's
No,
it.
well, there's all findings is just on the
Yes.
top of the next page.
Yep. General findings, all.
All.
Yeah,
And then the last one is internal landscaping. Facts related to reduced internal landscaping. Anybody give that one a,
No, I did not.
obviously 8,
What, 8?
8, maybe 9.
12?
Yep. And then for findings,
I'd say all.
okay.
Yep, that's fine.
All right, that covers it. We've already taken the vote. I'm going to put the 4K for the Kelvins under special conditions. I will make the revisions and send it back out and have the chair sign.
All right,
Works for me.
all right, now. Historic preservation is the next thing up. Nancy, I'll kind of let you take and run with this, and it's kind of your thing.
All right, I think we have Deb online as well. I don't know how many other members of the commission we have. Historical Commission did meet last Tuesday, a week ago Tuesday, and reviewed this in detail. They had 3 specific issues with it. One was a desire to limit the applicability of it to pre-19th century dwellings, which is a pretty dramatic change. They felt that those were the properties that they're having the biggest problem with in terms of the value, the historical value of them, and the at-risk situation with them. And since we have tried to get this through town meeting twice already and failed, the feeling was that the more we can limit it, the more likely we are to be able to get it through. The second significant concern was kind of a desire to pull out all the stops for those limited number of properties. And in doing that, we dropped both the original and the split to 1/2 size. And the third significant issue was the need for the Historical Commission to be an approver of both the applicability of a property to use this zoning bylaw and of the conditions for restoration and preservation. So on that introduction, I'll pass the baton here over to Deb and let her talk about it from the Historical Commission standpoint. I did send out to Evan, and he did, thank you. I lied this afternoon. Send out a copy of the edits I made, both based on the Historical Commission's concerns and my detailed
Nancy, just before
review of
you
the wording.
go,
So you should have that in your package. Yeah.
before you go too far, just remember we got town meeting reps that are watching this and everything else. Can you just give us a little rundown of what this will allow and what it won't allow?
What this allows is splitting a lot that has a house on it, in essence, that is pre-1900, in other words, pre-19th century, in other words, 1800 or before, to be split into 2 lots. In order to do that, the original historical property has to be put under preservation restrictions and restored to historic looks, if you will, external looks. And it can't be modified thereafter, except as approved by the Historic Commission. The 2 lots are allowed to be half the size for the zone that they're in. So in other words, you could take a conforming size lot and split it into one with the house on, with the original house on, and one with a new house to be built. It provides incentives to a developer to restore the house instead of tearing it down. And that's the entire gist of this. The tables that I included with the draft are a query from the assessor's database of properties that are old enough and have a large enough lot to have this, to be applicable. Not all of those properties could actually use it. If the house sits smack dab in the middle of the property, there's no way to split it in half and still get 2 lots that are half-sized. So there's absolutely no way to know exactly which of these lots could use it, but these are the lots that potentially could qualify if indeed the arrangement is such that they could be split. Henry, any other questions before Deb takes the,
Oh, let Deb go for it.
okay,
Hi, everyone. The properties that we're most concerned about in Chelmsford are the ones in the 1600s and 1700s. We don't have a lot of those left. I think we have maybe 10 that are dated 1600s. Some of those are already under preservation restrictions, so there's very few there. We just feel this gives us a tool to try to save a house. A lot of these houses are clustered around the center, and if you allow them to be torn down, the center is going to change. We would like to be involved with the conditions, and we would like, of course, with the preservation restriction, we will be walking the properties every year to make sure that they are abiding by the restrictions.
All right. All right, do we have any public input on this tonight? Been advertised. Colleen, is there anybody out there want to talk from the public on this?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yes, there was one in the chat box. Hold on. Tom Amiro.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This may be a bit of a tangent, but I don't know the answer to begin with. I'd just like to ask if the historical preservation restrictions, if that would prevent solar panels being put on a building such as the All Saints Church, because there was a member that was asking me today about, well, actually, she was talking about having the church sign up for a the Chelmsford Community Solar Array. I think the one that will be built off the Swain landfill. And I was saying, what about putting panels on the church? And then someone else, I'm a member, I want to get to know other people and other boards around town. We have a real brand new group called Chelmsford Climate Action Team. And so that's why this person, a member of the All Saints Church, was asking us about solar. And so someone else said, well, would the historical preservation prevent that? And that's all I want to ask. Is that the case or what?
this
Can I
bylaw,
answer the question?
go ahead, Deb.
All Saints is in the district, the historic district. They do have a policy on the panels that if you go to the town website, you'll see those. They are allowed in the district as long as you meet certain conditions.
Okay. And you can find that on the website under
The historic district.
just historic district. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Nobody else is signing up.
Nancy's got her finger up in the air. She's either
Thank
taking
you.
the temperature or she wants her attention.
I do, I want attention. I just wanted to add to what Deb said, is that this bylaw addresses residential properties only, not a church.
Okay.
All right. Well, if we have nobody else in the queue, I think we're gonna have 1 or 2 more. We gotta have 3 meetings for this, Evan?
There's no minimum number of meetings.
I would take at least have one more that we can take and hopefully have somebody else call in. I just don't want to feel like we're pushing it through where it's failed a couple times.
Henry, what do you want to do with the edits that I made?
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
If there's no more discussion this evening, and the board's inclined to continue it for a third hearing, my suggestion would be to have a clean version with the revisions ready for the next meeting.
That sound good to you, Nancy?
I can provide that, thank you.
All right, I entertain a motion.
Can I ask one question, Henry, before you do the motion?
Yeah.
What do other towns, and maybe Deb can answer this or Nancy, that have more historical homes, what's their process and procedures on saving these homes from getting demolished? Have you seen this type of a bylaw in some of those towns?
Can I answer, Nancy?
Deb, go ahead.
It's across the board. Some of them have very strict guidelines in some of the older towns. Some of them have the tiered system, which is kind of what we're talking about tonight. Some of them have a longer demolition delay. Most towns do have only the 1 year though. But without a bylaw change here, the 1 year, a lot of people wait us out and tear the building down.
Okay. So there's no other incentives that you have that you can add to this, like that they have in Lexington and Concord and Bedford, that we can use here?
What we found in the past is we put too many incentives on it, it gets killed at town meeting.
It does? Okay.
I think our goals were to keep it simple, as simple as we could, and protect the ones that we're most concerned about.
Yeah. And then the other question I had, Nancy, was for you on thinking hypothetical here. A new home goes behind another house on any main street or any street. The frontage, obviously they're not going to have any frontage for the new home that's in the back that we subdivided the lot. Does this bylaw require them to come through the shared driveway?
This does not require them to come through a shared driveway, although it doesn't prohibit the creation of a driveway either, a shared driveway either. This basically creates a back lot that is identical to what a single lot subdivision would be.
Okay.
So we have a discrepancy today in terms of back lots, pipe stem lots, and single lot subdivisions. And they end up being effectively the same thing with some vastly different size requirements.
Okay.
It's just a huge discrepancy.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for answering those questions. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment at least, more than a question. And that is the one thing that gives me pause about this is it strikes me that if the effective date for protection is 1800, that's not a lot of properties. I would vastly prefer to see that date considerably more recent, certainly through the Civil War and possibly up to the turn of the century. My view on it, thought I'd throw it out there.
Mike, I appreciate your view on it, and from my perspective, I would too. There's a lot of 1800s houses in town that really affect the character of our town. But right now, the feeling of the Historical Commission is that if they can get a protection of the oldest and effectively most important of the historic properties, hopefully someday we can expand that protection. We have failed twice at getting protections for the Victorian properties. I would say bring it up on town meeting floor in terms of an expansion and see where that goes.
I'll do that.
Anybody else have any other comments?
Yeah, Henry, I do.
Yeah.
Getting back to Mike's question, is there any tax incentives the town or the state has to preserve these historic homes?
No,
No, not
Nothing
for
in town?
private properties.
All right, and that was my other question. Are these just owner occupied properties, or is this any property that, you know, I could go buy and develop? Is it just, they're gonna have to be owner occupied?
No.
Nothing, okay. That's all I had.
Okay, one more.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
If I am going to bring this up, or somebody's potentially going to bring this up on the floor of town meeting, we have to make sure that it is drafted in such a way that that would not be considered an expansion. Evan, can you check with the town council and see if the date could be extended by amendment on the town floor?
I will check with the council on that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make
Motion
a
to
motion.
continue until next meeting.
Do I have a
Second.
All in favor?
All right,
Unanimous. That's all, Mr. Vice. Don, couldn't see your hand. There you go. Good. All right. Well, the next of it is Stonegate LLC, and this is the one that I'm sitting off of. So, Mr. Walsh, you're got the hot seat tonight.
Let me see if I got, I'm mute here, so I'm good. All right, so let's see here. Just looking at the agenda. Nothing's- So this is a continued public hearing for the Stonegate construction at 1 Billerica Road and 44 Central Square. So is Katie on tonight? Oh, there she is.
Yes, Mike, I'm here.
How you doing?
Good.
All
All
right.
right, good evening, everyone. I'm Katie Unright with Howard Stein Hudson. I'm here tonight on behalf of Stonegate Construction and Oddfellows Project LLC with the project at the Oddfellows building, the Fisk House building, Santander, and a new multifamily that's being proposed. I do have some new plans that were submitted last Thursday to the board, and oh, sorry, there's Melissa too. Melissa Robbins is also on tonight. She just popped up in the corner of my vision. Colleen, if it's easier, I can share my screen with the presentation, or it's exactly the materials that you have up, whichever is easiest for you.
It's always easier when you do it, Katie.
Okay. All right, let me bring up.
We just got to make you a co-host.
Oh, it's already letting me do it, I think.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so this is the plan that you saw at the last hearing. And I just want to update you and talk to you about a few changes since the last hearing. This is the colored rendering that was presented at the last hearing. Since then, and this one might be a little bit easier to see, this is a plan that we prepared for the Historical Commission, which we were in front of for partial demolition of the Fisk House. And also originally we were there for the demolition of the outbuilding. Since the project submitted to the planning board, we have gone back to Historical Commission and they have approved the demolition of these light blue areas on the back of the Fisk House. And we have agreed to move the original portion of the outbuilding on the subject site. And what we would do would be to remove the non-original section, which is the light blue section that's pointed to here. If I go back to this plan, what this plan does, and I know it's a little complex without the colors, it shows you where we're moving the outbuilding. So the original portion of the outbuilding will be moved to this area adjacent to the Fisk House. Have access through the door from this sidewalk in this location here. So we're essentially moving it from here to this area, essentially between the parking lot and the old retaining wall that we're going to keep in place as the project moves forward. This plan also shows the addition on the back of the Fisk House to create some ADA access, and I presented those plans and provided those plans to the board last week. And these are the plans that we'll be going back to the Historic District Commission with at the beginning of August. So this is the existing area that's coming off the rear of the Fisk House. Again here, this area in light blue is what's being removed from the Fisk House. So this is the face that faces Santander and the little outbuilding. Again, another view of that piece to be removed. As we move forward, we're showing you the proposed, basically if you were to look down from top down, the proposed addition on the back of the Fisk House. Again, this is a nicer view shed though. So essentially what we're doing, and we worked with Dan Barton, an architect with Mogul Architects who has done a lot of these historic structures, is we wanted to create a ground level entrance where people could get in from the parking lot and at some point in the near future, essentially enter the basement floor of the Fisk House, and there would be some sort of a lift or an elevator that would be incorporated when the interior of the Fisk House is renovated. In looking at different options for ADA access, if you're familiar with the site, the door facing Billerica Road is quite high in elevation and there's not a lot of parking nearby. And it kind of, when you're in the building itself, it really doesn't feel much of a front door. Historically, or I shouldn't say historically, but in my lifetime, when I went to visit the structure, we came in on the side facing Oddfellows, which is actually stairs all the way up. So there's a pretty significant elevation difference between the parking and the side entry here. By taking the addition off and putting this addition on the back, essentially what we've done is provided a door. So now there'll be 4 doors on this building. This is directly across from the door that faces Central Square. This creates a little, essentially a deck area, which would give people an area to, come outside of the office and have lunch, a little bit of a deck area here. And then at grade level, adjacent to the parking, you'd have an area. This area here is actually meant to be the wall of the Fisk House itself, the back wall. You would actually enter through an open arch, and then you would turn left to see the door. And then what this does is it allows us to do a little bit of grading within the building to get down to that lower level and have that access. And then in the future, there will be ADA access to the upper 2 floors. This here is essentially the position of the outbuilding also in this. So if I go back to this piece, you can see this is the area here that we're talking about. You would come in from the parking lot and go in through an open arch. So there's not a door here. You would see the foundation that would be exposed of the Fisk House. You would turn left to enter a door. And then here's where you currently enter the basement of the Fisk House structure from the parking lot if you were to come in from that side. It took me a couple minutes to kind of figure out how this all works. So if you need me to stay here a little bit longer, I'd be happy to go back to this. But we received approval from the Historical Commission for the demolition of the rear of the Fisk House and the demo of the newer portion of that outbuilding. And they worked with us and we're happy that we were able to move the outbuilding somewhere close to the Fisk House. These are just some of the materials that we'll be using to match the existing materials on the Fisk House today. To go back to my layout and materials plan, I have started to incorporate the comments. I didn't produce an entirely full plan set as we just started Conservation Commission last evening, and I wanted to make sure boards and commissions were not seeing multiple iterations of plans at the same time. So what I've provided here is an update to show the new addition on Fisk, to show the movement of this outbuilding, to show that we're able to maintain the existing retaining wall here, that both the HDC and the HC were looking for us to keep. And I've started to incorporate some of the comments related to the comments that we received from the fire department asking for this curbing to be sloped granite. There was comments from Christina Papadopoulos, your town engineer. I received a detailed list of comments that are about 1.5 pages long, a lot of which asked for these painted arrows to be painted in the field. I've added a significant amount of stop bars, stop signs, do not enter signs throughout the site to provide better direction throughout the site. You can see I've also taken off the arrow that shows that this would also be an out to Billerica Road. It's only an in, which is what it is today. So I've started to incorporate some of the comments that I received from the board and the different departments at the last hearing. We did have Conservation Commission last night. I'm going to go back to the color plan just because it's easier to understand before I move through the slides again. Conservation Commission last night was the first time that they saw it formally under a notice of intent, and we were able to talk through the project. I do have some information that I will need to provide to the commission, mostly in the way of moving some of the snow storage areas away from the resource areas, and also providing them with some additional information related to construction and essentially construction period controls. So I'm going to work with the client, the applicant, and myself to create a stormwater pollution prevention plan to provide to both this board and the Conservation Commission prior to the next hearing, so that we can talk a little bit more about interim drainage controls, stockpiling areas, areas to put equipment, et cetera, as we move forward. So most of their questions were related to essentially during construction, how everything was going to come together. So I have their comments from the first meeting. We have continued to August 4th, which will be the next Conservation Commission meeting. They did request a site visit this coming Monday, the 27th at 6 p.m. And I'd like to extend that invitation to this board. Certainly if this board is unable to make Monday, the 27th at 6 p.m., I'd be happy to get an alternative time to meet on site. They specifically requested that the four corners of the building be marked in the field. I know some of you were able to make it in an earlier process when we were here under the CVOD, when we were doing the balloon test, and was able to see the site at that time. If you didn't, this is certainly another opportunity that certainly this board is welcome to join us Monday evening. If not, I'd certainly be able to do it another time also with this board. We also have filed with the Historic District Commission. I think you'll remember that we received appropriateness for the Fisk House, the Oddfellows House, the Oddfellows building itself, and the architecture that we were proposing there. We also received a certificate of appropriateness for the new multifamily building. At that time, we didn't have information related to the Fisk House, and we hadn't completed a site plan yet. So we have filed with them for the renovation that we are proposing on the Fisk House, the movement of the outbuilding and the outbuilding itself and the site details itself. And we will be before the HDC, I believe, on August 3rd. With that, prior to the next meeting, I've prepared, and I didn't prepare it in time to file with this board early enough in the week, but I will be meeting with Dan Kostufis to go over the turning radius plans. I have 3 of them for the fire truck, and I will provide that to this board in a timely manner prior to the next hearing. And also we have made a little bit of headway or had some communications regarding parking. At the last meeting, we had spoke of trying to reach out to some of our neighbors. We did have a video virtual meeting with Reverend Paul and Laura Berry of All Saints Church, and had a good kickoff conversation to discuss the needs, both the needs of the church when it comes to parking, and also the needs of our restaurant on this site when it comes to parking. And we were able to kind of work back and forth and talk about essentially our schedules and when the most people would be parking on our sites. And this was just an initial conversation, but we look forward to having additional conversations with them in the future about a potential kind of back and forth of a way to park on the site. I wanted to clarify a little bit about parking on the site. I know we talked a little bit last time about zoning compliance. One of the things I did want to mention in looking at zoning compliance, I know we talked a little bit about the 50% requirement in the Center Village District. One of the things I did want to mention that I didn't mention last time is that when the restaurant is in operation, in times when it may be busy, there are kind of alternative schedules of some of the other businesses on site Certainly, we intend right now that the Fisk House would be renovated as office. We do not know that for sure. And certainly Santander Bank has certain operating hours. When those two businesses are empty, essentially those parking requirements for both the Fisk and the Santander make up the other 50% of the parking that would be required for the restaurant. So on an evening of, say, Friday night, if those buildings were both to essentially close down at 5:30, 6 o'clock, those additional 21 spaces would be free to be used by the restaurant at those times. So I wanted to mention that as we were discussing parking tonight, and certainly we look forward to talking to All Saints again in the future to see if anything can be worked out there, and also other owners throughout the center of town that may have excess parking or alternative times of usage. We do have some additional comments from water. Like I stated, we have about 32 comments from engineering that I am working through. We're looking to gain any other kind of comments that the board might have at the end of the conversation tonight, so that we may incorporate them into kind of one large revision that we could submit prior to the next hearing, and hopefully kind of take care of a significant amount of the issues that we have today. And the last plan that I provided you was something that was a request from a member of the board. It's a little, I think it's easy to understand. Essentially, and please correct me if I'm wrong, what I heard was that the board would like to see a plan that shows elevation-wise how all of the buildings, or a significant amount of buildings in the center, kind of line up with one another. So this is a very flat comparison of based on elevations throughout the center of the town, where the Gristmill building, the Chelmsford Center Hotel building, the CCA, the Fisk, the Oddfellows, and the new multifamily building fit. If you were to look at them on a purely vertical plane next to one another. So it's very hard to kind of say, there's really not a view shed here that you're seeing, because you wouldn't see all of these buildings essentially ever on this plane together. Also, the Chelmsford Center Hotel building, the Fisk House building, and the Oddfellows building are also right up against the street, and both the multifamily building and the Gristmill building are both more than 200 feet away from the street. And behind other structures when you're looking at them. So this is a very, basically a cut or a profile of how these buildings compare to one another on a vertical scale. So you can see the Gristmill building, the garage elevation is 134. The first floor elevation is 145.5, going from left to right. The Littleton Road Plaza, where the Java room is at about 152. And then the roof of the Gristmill building would be at an elevation of 190. Moving to the Chelmsford Center Hotel building, again, the center, the central square, this is still calling it Boston Road, which I was just educated in what part is actually Boston Road and what part is Central Square. So this will get changed, but this is the face that faces Oddfellows and Fisk, is about 137. Littleton Road, where you see the Chelmsford Center Hotel, is about 142, and the top of the roof of that structure is 184.9. So this is a combination of building or actual elevations that I took from the field survey and knowing what was constructed out there. The Chelmsford Center Hotel, the CCA, the Fisk, and the Oddfellows were all surveyed by the survey crew that did the survey for the Gristmill, because we used some of these when we were talking about heights with the Gristmill building. And then you can see the proposed multifamily building. So you can see we're way down at 123.75 for the garage floor. Boston Road elevation is 130. Billerica Road is 136. The top of the roof is 185.17. And then by the time we add the screening to screen all the mechanicals, the screen is 188.5. So this is a very flat kind of interpretation of the different heights of the buildings. This is what I heard for a request, so please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking for, at this point, to really kind of work towards a revised plan set that tries to holistically capture as many of the comments or questions as possible. I know we'll also be updating the landscape plan with some of the comments heard at the last hearing. And certainly if there's additional landscaping comments, I know we will be taking out the pin oaks and replacing those with different types of trees. And at the request of Mr. Rigney, we will be looking at the area that we are looking to remove trees on the northeast side of the parking lot where there's a little bit of grading and adding some vegetation in that area in a future plan. And with that, I would like to, oh, one last thing, we have been working and meeting with David Hedison at the Chelmsford Housing Authority, and we will have a proposal before this board in time. We're hoping in time for the next meeting with the board to discuss the inclusionary housing piece. We have had multiple conversations with Chelmsford Housing Authority just to get their feedback as to what we're proposing. And certainly we understand that this board is the deciding factor on anything inclusionary housing, understanding that we do need to get some information from the Housing Advisory Board, which hasn't met yet. We've been working with Evan to try to get them together in a meeting. But in the meantime, we have been meeting with Chelmsford Housing Authority to essentially work through some of our proposals. So we're hoping to get that to you in time prior to the next hearing for review. So with that, I would like to turn it over to the board.
Okay. All right, thank you, Katie. Does Melissa want to speak before we open it back up to the public?
No,
At
I
all?
think Katie pretty much gave an overview of everything that we had outstanding. So just the board's comments this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. So before we go back to the public, because it's still a public hearing, we want to go around the board and just see what comments that have been made of Katie's drawings, and especially that profile drawing. If anyone has comments, Dawn, you want to start with Dawn?
Let me unmute. Hold on.
No, you're on.
Oh yeah. No, I don't have any issues. I'm just happy that they were able to get together with All Saints Church.
Okay. Glenn?
I think I'm fine with it. Looks like a good project.
Okay. Nancy?
Yeah, first I'd like to thank Katie for the elevation exhibit plan. It's exactly what I was trying to ascertain. And I'm very pleased to see that the height of the building in terms of the top level height is very consistent with other buildings and actually does not exceed two of the 6 buildings in question. So yes, thank you.
Okay. Hank?
I like the project myself. I'm still not a fan of the 4 stories. I mean, just because we had older buildings that are a little high with steeples, I just want to stick with the code and go with 3. But
Okay.
besides that, I'm fine.
Mike?
I'm relatively happy with it. Nothing at this point. I think a lot of what we had talked about last time was addressed.
Okay. All right. So yeah, there's a lot of still items that comments. I think we've got everyone there on the committee. Tim's not on yet. So I think just my 2 cents on it. I think there's some comments that have not been addressed yet. I know you guys are working through it, and we're going to see. So that's what we'll remind the public who are on the call before we open it back up, that the drawings are not 100% complete. They're not have incorporated our comments from the last meeting. And Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, as you mentioned, you will be coming again back in August. And with the final, would that be the final set of drawings that we can, and you're looking for a decision at that time? Or will it just be continued into the next 2 meetings?
I mean, I think what we're looking for is we're looking to get a good, not to be long about it, but we're looking to go back to Conservation Commission one more time and provide them with information and a new set of drawings that hopefully encompasses most of these comments. Also Historic District Commission and this board. And I think we're hoping that at the next meeting, maybe would be comfortable enough to have Evan, maybe not close, but have Evan start working on a decision that maybe we could speak to at the end of August, if the board feels comfortable at that time.
Yeah, I think if a lot of our comments are addressed by then and we see them in the drawings, I think we'll be heading right down the right path. What was, if you can publicly say, what was the first initial reactions to the Conservation Commissions regarding the buffer zones where the building is sitting? Do they have any agita about that at all?
So we talked a lot about it, and they asked me straight out why the building was there and not the parking. And we talked a little bit about kind of the history of the project and how this building is kind of moved around the lot. We're not any closer than the existing pavement is there today, and the existing disturbance there. So this project is seen as a redevelopment within the riverfront area. So what the standard is that we're required to make it better than existing conditions. So what we've done by putting the building kind of closer to the resource areas than the parking, but not closer than what's there today, is essentially provided all of the green space closest to the resource areas. And it also gives us a chance to provide some increased drainage and TSS removal prior to reaching the brook and also the wetland. So by the position of the building in this location, we're able to pull the pavement as far away from the resource areas as possible while utilizing the existing disturbed area and keep the 1,200 square feet plus or minus of decrease in impervious surface in the closest proximity to the brook and also to the BVW. So you can see, it's hard to see because I don't have the pavement turned on underneath here, but essentially this area here is paved and all of this area here is paved now. So we spoke to other things that we spoke to. We are in the floodplain, and I will be providing this board with a plan I provided to them showing the cut fill analysis. One of the other things we were able to do is increase flood storage on the site. The floodplain line goes up with the brook and essentially passes through the site in about this location here. So we provided them with a color-coded plan to show that we're not increasing any fill in 1 foot intervals through the entire area, and we're actually increasing on-site flood storage. We've also proposed the first floor of the new multifamily building has 74 smart vents at the garage level, which are created to allow for essentially the water to pass through the building when the floodwaters rise. So essentially when the water hits these flood vents, they open and allow up to 3-inch solids to pass through the building and come out the other side during a flood event so that the interior of the building can accomplish the floodwaters from the Beaver Brook if and when it is to rise and hit that flood elevation. We also provided them with increased drainage, TSS removal, and increased pervious surfaces throughout the site. So as I stated, all of my notes from last evening, besides pertaining to certainly the revisions that Christina Papadopoulos has required for drainage, pertain to making sure the snow storage areas were moved outside of the 70 feet from the resource areas, and speaking to some construction period controls. So understanding how during construction the drainage will work on the site. We're decommissioning some of the drainage that's there today to improve it. Where stockpiling will be done, with the sequencing of events of the site will look like. They also requested to see the exterior of the Fisk House construction because we will be right up against the brook with the exterior renovation work that will be done on the Fisk House. And so generally they look forward to seeing the site on Monday evening. We talked a little bit about getting some trash out of Beaver Brook. And also we talked about looking at invasives on Monday evening and seeing if they would request us to do some invasive removal and some long-term maintenance of invasives along that side of the brook, similar to what we did with the Winstanley project over at Andiamo. So there will be some additional information that we will be providing them with, but overall, they generally seemed positive.
Great. All right, thank you very much for that explanation. So with this being a continued public hearing, yes, Tom?
Michael, I do have one more question.
Yeah.
Has there been any further discussion regarding crossing over the brook and connecting the property with Town Center?
There's not.
Is there plans?
There's not at this time. If that's a request of this board, certainly we would bring it back to the client and have that discussion.
Mike, can I jump in? I got 4 quick items.
Yes, Evan.
Yeah, so I have not written a memo on this. And now that it appears as though the next meeting will be kind of a final iteration, 4 quick items. So I believe the zoning bylaw has a floodplain bylaw. Since this is a COID Center Village project, the floodplain special permit comes under the planning board. So I would just request that whatever floodplain information was submitted to the Conservation Commission also be submitted to the planning board, so that we can incorporate that into the board's public hearing process. Katie mentioned something about internal signs, stop signs, directional signage, things of that nature. My only comment on that is previous board members, planning board members, once the Santander branch was up and running, provided feedback among themselves and received feedback from the community that there were a lot of regulatory directional signage on the Santander project, a lot of stop signs, do not enter signs, things of that nature. And essentially the feedback was that they were sign pollution and not very aesthetic. So my suggestion is internally, maybe they're not needed. I can understand at Boston Road and Billerica Road, but I would encourage the applicant to minimize those internal directional signs. And I offer that for consideration to the board. Final 2 comments is similar to Gristmill 1. I'd be interested in seeing a more robust pocket park or a pocket park, maybe some brick pavers, things of that nature. Again, similar to Gristmill 1. Maybe there's a constraint with the riverfront area and the Conservation Commission on that. Final comment is piggybacking on Donald's comment on the bridge. This is an item that's of interest to the Center Village Master Planning Committee. I would strongly encourage this board to further explore a bridge connection. I believe 2 of these properties will be held maybe in common ownership. The owner of Fishbones has a rear parking lot. And it would be of great benefit to the brick walk to see if a bridge connection can be made somewhere between the rear of the Fishbones parking lot and this project. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Evan. All right, so do we want to leave this on the screen when we go to public hearing, or do we want to go back to the gallery view? And to the public, just to remind you, when you do speak, if you can just state your name and your address, and then please understand that the drawings are not complete with our comments. Obviously, there's a few comments that all of the board members have made at the previous meetings and the neighbors as well. And I don't think they're all been incorporated in the drawings yet or even attempted to be looked at yet. So the engineers still need to finish that. So try not to repeat the same concerns you had at the last meeting. We'd appreciate that. Colleen, are there people waiting? Colleen, you're on mute.
Having technical difficulties. My screens are on and off. There's nobody in the queue for questions.
There was in the chat room, they asked if there's public input. Someone would like to speak. Is it Tom?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Hi,
Tom.
my name is Tom Amiro. I live at 90 Westford Street. I've been in Chelmsford for 40 years. And I would just like to, make a suggestion. The project looks, good to me from what I've seen. And it would be really great if it included some public, EV charging stations, especially since it has a restaurant, and I mean, I had an experience where I went on vacation up in Meredith, New Hampshire, and there was nowhere to charge a car. And I think some people may be coming to Chelmsford for vacation or for visiting relatives. And of course, if you're getting a bite to eat, there's nothing better than being able to charge your electric car while you're doing so. I'm just hoping that somehow ends up in the plans for this project. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Katie, is there anyone else in the chat?
Nobody I can see.
Okay. With that being said, is there anyone on the board that would like to make any additional comments before we take a motion to continue to the next meeting?
I'll make the motion to continue.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Oh, Nancy, go ahead.
Yeah, I was looking at the plan and saw the proposed concrete dumpster pad behind the Oddfellows. Katie, where is the delivery for that building?
Do you want to take control again, Katie, of the drawing of the show
It just
plan?
seems like the pad is where you would have deliveries.
Sure, yeah, so essentially, the delivery truck would pull up, and then basically pull in here. And yes, it would be essentially in this same area. That's what they do now in this area here. And there's not really, we've taken out any kind of parking in this area so that this would be dumpster recycling and deliveries for the restaurant. And this is the service door for the restaurant.
Can you reposition those dumpsters so that you have better access for your delivery trucks? Can you take a look at that, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Not hearing any. Do we have a motion to continue to the next, what's the date? August 12th, is it?
Yes.
August 12th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Evan, do I need a roll call on this that was on a final?
No.
No, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you,
Thank you
Melissa
very
and
much,
Katie.
Mr. Chair. Could I just ask, Mr. Chair, did I hear you mention that there may be an in-person meeting on the 12th?
There was a discussion that's happening earlier on the phone on the call here that possibly going over on the
Just to
12th.
clarify, any discussions or considerations for in-person meetings would only be for the board. Applicants and public would still be via Zoom.
Okay, thank you, Evan.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Good night. Henry, back over to you.
Good job, Mike. You might have a new job. North Star Realty, I guess, was continued to August 12th. So next up, we got meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to go through them?
Yes.
I didn't see any
Yes.
problems with them.
I'm okay.
Right there.
We've got two sets of them here. I'd entertain a motion to do one at a time, I guess. So meeting minutes for May 27th.
I move to accept the meeting minutes of May 27th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Meeting minutes for June 10th.
Motion to accept meeting for June 10th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Henry, quick question for you. Just a clarification. On the agenda, it says the next meeting's the 6th. Is that just a typo?
It is a typo. It's a 12th.
It is a 12th. Okay, thank you.
A couple other things. Did anybody see the email from the the select board on how many new residents are coming to town?
I haven't, I haven't seen it.
I printed it out. Basically, a week after we get our thing about sewer capacity, they got the 200 units coming on. That's an old Apollo Road. Is that, Evan? Or one of the buildings over there?
Former Mercury, 199 201 Riverneck.
Yep. And then we got the Glenview is not going to be rebuilt. It's going to be apartments there.
Townhouses, I believe.
Yeah. And across the street there at the Wayne.
UMass West Campus.
UMass Wayne Campus. How much is going there?
So Hanover company is currently in front of the Board of Selectmen for consideration of a friendly 40B, upwards of 400 units. I think 340 of which are Hanover's, and the remaining would be a Chelmsford Housing Authority choice development.
Is what am I hearing correct, that this will be the first project where they'll have to build their own sewer? It's still up to debate. I mean,
yeah, that's already been put on the table. Further discussions will take place, but it seems pretty clear at this point that any sizable or significant new development will likely need to provide their own private wastewater treatment plants. And so there's a variety of, or a number of amendments to local bylaws and regulations that may need to take place, including a town meeting vote, in order to legally allow that opportunity to occur.
Evan, I had a question. When I saw that presentation to the Board of Selectmen, I was kind of surprised that such a large development, 40B, friendly 40B, does not come even in front of the planning board. Is that the traditional way, so that this committee doesn't even get to comment on the size of the structure? And
so the legal process of a 40B goes to the zoning board. A friendly 40B goes to the Board of Selectmen and then to the zoning board. So that's the legal process. Obviously, as this board knows, this board can provide comment anytime you want on any type of project that you feel is within your interest or purview. Secondly, which is probably more pertinent to the Board of Selectmen process, the Board of Selectmen is likely going to be seeking input from a variety of town boards and committees, of which the planning board will likely be one. As part of that process, the proponent would likely make an appearance or request an appearance in front of the planning board. So there will be opportunity between the Board of Selectmen process and the ZBA process for the planning board to provide its input.
does that get a public hearing at the Board of Selectmen, or where is there a public hearing at all by law?
Yeah, so the at this upcoming Monday Board of Selectmen's meeting, there'll be an update and a discussion with the Board of Selectmen as to what their process involves and will entail. Their friendly 40B lit policy requires a public meeting with a butter notification. Essentially, the Board of Selectmen is tasked with co-signing the LIP application indicating the town's support. By doing that, that will then provide the opportunity for the applicant to formally and legally submit to the zoning board. The zoning board is the one that holds the public hearing, very similar to a planning board public hearing, butter notification, detailed departmental comments, detailed board review, peer review where necessary. So all of the typical issues related to traffic, parking, drainage would all be fully reviewed as part of the zoning board process.
Okay, thank you.
Comment?
Good, Mike.
Okay, now let me understand. Are we currently at the point with affordable housing in which a non-friendly 40B could not take place?
Correct. We have safe harbor certification through October of this year. We also believe that we're over 10%. So at this point, the town's position is that unfriendly 40Bs are not something that the town legally would be required to.
Okay,
You know,
understood. So this is basically just a dodge to get around the planning board. Is that correct?
Well, there's
Yes
only
or no?
there's only two options.
Yeah,
If they were to come to the planning board, they would be coming for a rezoning. There's no
Okay.
zoning in place currently to allow what they're proposing to be approved by the planning board.
that ought to be a real good hint.
All right, any other comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Hold it.
Yes. Henry.
Yes,
Yeah, question. I noticed that we do have representation from the Board of Selectmen here tonight. And I was wondering if he could comment on how they plan to handle this application. Ken?
He muted.
He is muted. Okay, he unmuted.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Thank you. I didn't have control over the mute button, so thank you. Well, as you guys, probably most of you know, it was only had just come in front of us. And part of our discussion was, how do we incorporate the boards in town, including the planning board? We were not looking to take this upon ourselves. You know, I know it comes under our purview and we, you know, sort of take control over it at that point and move it forward. But we sort of set the tone of what we want done. And we have no intention of, and to kind of answer Michael's comment, and Evan, you can clarify this too. I think the goal of doing the friendly 40B is to get around the issue of going to town meeting, more so, because then it's rezoning and you have to go to town meeting, not to get around the planning board.
Well,
Evan, I don't know if you could speak on that quickly.
Well, it effectively does get around the planning board. And I think we need to be very wary about dodging town meeting in order to avoid a zoning vote. I mean, this is a town meeting town.
I totally agree with you. And it wasn't obviously the Board of Selectmen's recommendation to do it that way. I mean, that's how they're presenting it to us. They want to do a friendly 40B, and those are the rules for the friendly 40B. And Evan, if they go friendly 40B, there's no other, really, if they decide to do that, there's no other way to do it, right? That the process is, it comes to the Board of Selectmen.
And the Board of Selectmen can say yes or no.
Correct. But we set the ground rules of what the yes looks like, and then it moves on. So we are gonna, I mean, I can't speak for the board. We haven't gone into full discussions on it, but I would want input from, or some feedback at least from the planning board.
Would you be willing to give the planning board an up or down, yes or no? That's the point. And the answer, I think, is no. So,
So hold on, Mike, what you're asking for is, would the Board of Selectmen be willing to, I just want to be clear, would we be willing to give you veto power?
Well, I'm expecting that you wouldn't. And my point is, on a friendly 40B like this, that's basically being used as a way to avoid going to town meeting with a zoning article, wouldn't it be better to, because obviously if the Board of Selectmen is not friendly to it, it won't happen. It will have to go through the other mechanism. I would suggest that you do that. We've pushed other people to attempt zoning changes. They haven't been successful in many cases, but we have certainly taken that position and pushed that forward. I don't see why this particular development should be any different.
Okay, but I can, I mean, I don't know if the rest of the board wants to speak to that, but I take that into consideration as we go through the process.
I do have a question for Evan. Evan, if this property was rezoned, say through the planning board, could we somehow achieve the same number of units and the density that's being proposed under a LIP?
You know, I would think in this particular instance, the unique set of circumstances that are relevant to this property, any rezoning would likely be proposed as the same project.
Yeah, it would create a kind of a somewhat unique district. It's large enough to do that.
Right. So my suggestion at this point is, like I said, the Board of Selectmen are discussing this Monday evening. They're primarily discussing their process moving forward, what it would entail. My expectation is that the planning board is likely going to be asked for some input from the Board of Selectmen. And maybe after Monday night's meeting, we can reach out to the proponent and have them appear before the planning board. I will say that I think initial reaction, if you have not seen the plan or definitely rewatch the last Board of Selectmen's meeting, it has been well received. The applicant has done some significant outreach to existing abutters, which is somewhat unusual for development in Chelmsford of this scale. And then, like I said, it seemed to be fairly well received by some of the initial abutters, as well as some of the general public. So I would encourage planning board members to review the last Board of Selectmen's meeting and then tune in Monday night. But I do think in this particular case, whether it were a rezoning at town meeting or permitted in some other fashion, I think the proponent would likely make the same proposal.
Yeah.
That's primarily based upon the economics of the situation.
Yes, and I'm glad to see that it's well received, and it sounds as if it may be a very good project, very good indeed. However, we've set the town up such that changes like this, which are effectively zoning changes, whatever you will call them, are passed on by the town, and I'm very hesitant to bypass that mechanism for expediency's sake.
Sure. I can tell you that the applicant is well aware of what their legally, permitting options
Oh, you can bet.
are available to them. I know they've expressed their opinion.
I imagine.
And Mike, I would say, come on to the Zoom meeting Monday night. Obviously, this group of individuals who are presenting this have been incredibly generous with outreach and commitment to time and dedication to talk to people. So if the planning board wants to make some statement or request that they want us to entertain and work with the developer, I mean, I'm sure they're open to it. We're open to it.
Yeah.
But the other thing too, Mike, is
I think you're missing my point, Ken.
No, I'm not missing your point, but I think there's other stuff to consider. We are a town meeting town. I understand that, but you also have a developer who, this property's been sitting there vacant for how long with no tax revenue, falling in disrepair, having all kinds of environmental impacts. They just finished a pretty sizable cleanup up there because of a collapsed roof. There was environmental, cleanup there for that. And you've got a developer who's looking at this and saying, well, wait a minute, would we proceed with the project if I go to town meeting? If the answer to that, I mean, I would get nervous if he said no. If I'm getting feedback from all of the people surrounding it saying they're open to this project and they think it would improve the neighborhood, and he's saying if I go to a town meeting, I'm going to walk because I just don't have the time and or don't want to roll the dice because I've seen what happens at your town meetings with large projects. That's stuff we have to consider. You can't just tell the guy.
In other words, if it doesn't happen, we'll bypass the town meeting in order to make it happen.
I think
Yeah,
we're,
I think this is
I think you're getting
odd.
the point across, Mike.
Good.
All right. The only other concern I had is that they were concerned about the sewer treatment plant, which, you know, is something we have to consider.
Yeah, we got to deal with that.
All right. Other than that, I would take a. Are you done, Ken? Or
Yeah, I done. I wasn't even really thinking I was talking tonight, so I was done before I started talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a comment to Ken. The two concerns that I've got here are that the ZBA is typically in the business of reviewing 1 and 2 family housing. So to have a project of this size going through a technical review by the ZBA only is perhaps not exactly going to get you the inputs you need. The other comment is that folks in town like to have the choices that are given to them by law, which is the town meeting vote for rezoning. And I have no opinions on this being a good project or a bad project. I haven't seen it. I think the concept of putting that there is appropriate, but I don't think people are gonna like it if it's jammed down their throats. So that's my only comment.
Nancy, can I just ask you a question? You said you had 2 comments and you read them. Were those your comments or were those something someone emailed in or
Those are my comments.
chatted in?
Those
Okay,
are my
all right.
comments.
I just want to. Okay, I just want to know where they came from. That's all.
Yeah.
Henry,
Thank you.
Henry, can I make this is Colleen.
Yep.
The comment, so the ZBA has seen 40Bs before. This is nothing new for them. They do have experience in this. They're quite good at it. So, you know, this is what happens when they bypass local zoning using a mass general law named 40B. Whether it's friendly or faux, you know, they bypass all local zoning. That's the way it works. So I would highly suggest you guys have a conversation with Paul Haverty because he is an expert on this.
No, there's no debate about that point. We know what the law is. It's the use of the law.
yeah. Well, I think we've made our opinions known, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Strongly suggest people watch the selectmen's meeting and make an informed opinion at that point. All right. Now I would take a motion.
Motion to
You
adjourn.
got it. Oh, you beat me to it. Can I second?
Second, Mike. All right.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.